So some leaks and rumours have come out today ahead of Manchester United's game versus Brentford, which suggests that Marcus Rashford is one of a number of players being dropped from the starting 11. We will get into Manchester United's starting lineup against Brentford later in this video as we do a match preview ahead of that game. But I firstly want to talk about a few things that Erik Ten Hag said in his press conference today ahead of the Brentford game, where he was really honest, I think, with the problems at United. I like that he doesn't make excuses. He doesn't talk about injuries. Erik Ten Hag said that he's at fault for this and that. There's a few problems, and I think he did a pretty honest assessment of the club and where the problems lie. So we're going to talk about a few things that Erik Ten Hag said in his presser. We're going to talk about the latest injury news, and then we're going to get into what Manchester United's starting 11 is likely to look like versus Brentford later today. What's the rumoured lineup and what's my lineup and more. So please do hit that like button if you haven't already, and of course subscribe down below if you're new. So Erik Ten Hag said a few things in his presser. He was asked about Sancho firstly, and Sancho was sent back at Carrington today, but Ten Hag said that nothing has changed and Sancho is no longer part of the squad and he doesn't want to comment any more on it. But Erik Ten Hag was asked about what the problems are at United, and basically he listed a number of problems with Manchester United, which I think he's spot on. The first thing he mentioned was consistency. Erik Ten Hag's exact words was, consistency is a problem. That is a problem and we're struggling with it. In parts of the game, in big parts, we do a lot of things right, but we have moments where we struggle in such moments and can't survive. And he's spot on. Against Brighton, we were good for 20 minutes, bottled the game. Against Bayern, we were good for 20 minutes, bottled the game. Against even Crystal Palace, we were good for 20 minutes, bottled the game. We can't be consistent for 90 minutes. He's saying in big moments, we're not doing things. We're not consistent throughout the whole game, and we're not consistent in our form. We saw versus Crystal Palace. Yes, it was a bad Crystal Palace side, but we saw midweek Manchester United play really well against Crystal Palace, and then at the weekend be really poor. And Erik Ten Hag said a big part of that is that the players need to improve on concentration, which I think is absolutely spot on. The fact that we can just concede a silly goal like that or go 1-0 up and then concede a silly goal, I think Erik Ten Hag is absolutely spot on when he says that we need to improve concentration. Erik Ten Hag was asked about the performance level dropping of his players, and he said yes, we've dropped levels and we have to get back to those. There are reasons for that, but still it's not acceptable and we have to fight against it. And he's spot on. He's not making silly excuses or anything like that. He's saying, look, we have dropped levels and it's not acceptable. There's obviously reasons for it, injuries, obviously players being tired. There are many reasons for dropping levels, but he spoke about the fact that we've massively dropped off since the Carabao Cup, and that's not good enough. At the end of the day, it's unacceptable. And he did say a few things. He did say, we know we're still in transition as a club, but in the meantime, we have to win every game also. We don't walk away from that. Not this team, not these coaches, not this manager. No, definitely not. We have to win every game, and that is the approach, and that will always be the approach. Erik Ten Hag said the most important thing is he wins every game. He says, look, we're still in transition of a club. We have got problems, but we have to win every game in the meantime, and we're not doing that, and we can't walk away from that. He says he can't, the coaches can't, the players can't. The meantime, we have to win every game. And he said at the end of the day, it's patience, cool heads, but if we stick together and focus, that's what it's about. And he says, so is the way we play. He says that we need to stick together as a team. We need to be focused. And I think he's right with that. Now, I want to get up on the screen a few more things he said, because I just realised I thought I was sharing my screen and you could actually see the quotes on the screen. But I am now sharing my screen. But Ten Hag did say a few other things that I thought was interesting. He said about United, he said, I know that there would be gaps. There would be setbacks, and there would be in every process. But yeah, in this club, it's probably happened more, which is spot on. He's saying, look, when you are a manager and you've got to do a rebuild, of course, there's going to be good moments, bad moments, setbacks. Pep Guardiola's had seasons where he hasn't won the league. That's seen as a setback for him. But he said at United, obviously, these setbacks are going to happen more, which is absolutely spot on. And we know why these setbacks happen more at Manchester United, and that's massively because of our owners, the board, the way we operate. But he said, look, there's going to be setbacks. Obviously at United, it seems to happen more, and that's understandable. But as I say, we must focus on things, and we must focus on football and nothing else. And this is what I like about Ten Hag. He's very honest. He's saying, look, the setbacks, these aren't good. We need to win. These are unacceptable. There's obviously more setbacks happening at Man United than any other club. But he said, what we need to do is focus on football and nothing else. And that's absolutely spot on. I think a lot of our players sometimes aren't focused on football. They're focused on potentially things like social media or other things where I think they get distracted. They almost care too much what people say about them. And look, I understand that to an extent, but I feel a lot of our players sometimes focus more on their image, PR, and it's like sometimes you just have to focus on football, not all these other things. And I think, we do get distracted a little bit as a club. And I think it's not totally our players' fault, because I think there's just so much media and attention around United. And I think the money in football is crazy, which can be distracting. But what I like about Ten Hag is he's not put blame on individual players. Now, I think some individual players have been disgraceful this season. I think some players, a lot of players, aren't showing the right mindset and mentality and giving 100%. But Erik Ten Hag isn't, publicly naming and shaming and putting blame on his players. He's saying, you know what, I am also responsible, which is true. I back Ten Hag. I think, sacking another manager isn't going to solve our problems. And I like that Ten Hag is, said that we don't have the right mentality, but he says that he's responsible for that. He does take blame for some of our problems. He's not totally blaming the players, which I respect about him. He says, I am responsible that we have the right mentality, my communication, my demands, my standards. It is my standards that I demand from the players, and in their togetherness and with communication together. Now I have to set that, and that the right mentality is there. So and I give my 100% effort every day to get that in. And essentially he's saying at the end of the day, the mentality is not right, but he's got to set that. He's responsible for making sure his standards, level of communication, demands, and mentality is being met. And he's saying with the right communication, with the right work rate, with the right example, I'm sure the right mentality is there. We saw it earlier, sort of towards the end of last season, and I spoke about this with Saeed earlier. We saw sort of mid last season, sort of that period, that sort of 1 month, 2 month period just after the World Cup. We would see Manchester United winning every game 1-0, 2-1, getting the win over the line, working really hard. We saw an example of where there was a good mentality, and that just completely dropped. And we need to get back to that sort of fighting mentality. So now I'm obviously going to get into what Manchester United's starting 11 is going to look like, and a bit of an injury and news update ahead of the game versus Brentford, which is definitely a must-win game. But I did want to cover a few things that Ten Hag said in a press conference, because I think he did a good job at highlighting some of our issues, lack of concentration, making silly mistakes. We need to have that right mentality. There's clearly some issues there. And I think in all, it was a good press conference without sort of singling anyone out. He said that he's got to be responsible for, the mentality. He's got to improve that. Obviously, they are in transition of a club, but they've also got to win games. He wasn't making excuses for that. And he said, look, there's going to be setbacks. It's a rebuild, but we need to focus more. We need to concentrate more, and we need to be more consistent. And I do think he made a lot of good points. But I want to talk about how Manchester United are going to line up. There's a lot of calls for Onana to be dropped, which I think is silly. So we're going to keep Onana in goal. I know he hasn't been good, but you just don't drop a keeper. You just got to hope that he finds his confidence, because we know how good of a player he is. Now, right back is obviously going to be Diego Dalot, because he's the only right back. The right centre back is going to be Varane. And to be honest, I'm not sure who's going to play Lindelof and Maguire, but I actually think Maguire might get a run in, because Lindelof has been particularly poor. And what we're going to do is we're going to get into my starting 11, and then we're going to get into what I think Ten Hag is going to do. So this starting 11 is what I'm going to do. Now, I really want to see Amrabat in midfield, but we've got two solutions. It's either Amrabat or Lindelof at left back. And Lindelof's played at full-back before, and he was even worse than Amrabat. So we're going to have to play Amrabat left back, because even though Reguilon's back in training, he's not fit. So I don't really want to see Amrabat left back, but I think that's our only option, because I think Lindelof will be worse at left back. So what is Alice's lineup? So I'm going with a diamond, because even though the diamond didn't work the first time out, that was because we had McTominay and Eriksen, who were the wider players in the diamond that couldn't cover the ground. We know that Mejbri and Mount can cover the ground, so they can give the fullbacks the protection they need. Obviously, last time with the diamond, Eriksen wasn't running enough, McTominay wasn't doing the ball off the work, and neither was Casemiro. The only player doing the off the ball work was Bruno. But I think if we do a diamond again with Bruno as the number 10, it can work, because 3 of the 4 players we know are very good off the ball, but because 3 of the 4 players are good off the ball, it should cover for Casemiro's. I mean, when I say good off the ball, Casemiro's good off the ball, but I mean ability to cover ground. I think that the diamond might be our best bet right now at the moment to get control of the midfield, because I do think that Mount and Mejbri can cover the ground that McTominay and Eriksen couldn't cover last time we played the diamond. So personally, myself, if this was my lineup, I'd do the diamond, and I'd actually, you know what? I'd actually play Martial and Højlund. Even though I don't know if Martial's got the legs, I've been really impressed with him lately in that. So this would be my lineup. Let me know your lineup ahead of tomorrow's game in the chat. I don't think we'll see this. I don't think we'll see Ten Hag play this, but this would 100% be my lineup ahead of the game tomorrow. I think that Mejbri really important because of his ability to cover ground. I think the Mount's been good, Højlund's been good. I think that Bruno, I know a lot of people are calling for him to be dropped, and I think if Bruno's going to play on the right wing, you might as well play Antony because Bruno's awful on the right wing. But I think when Bruno's in the middle in the 10 role, getting the balls at the right time, he can massively influence the game, come up with that goal and stuff as well. So this would personally be my lineup, but I have a feeling Ten Hag's going to go with a 4-3-3. And what I've heard is Antony is probably likely to play because he's back fit. So I think it will be Antony on the right. From what I'm hearing, Rashford's been dropped and it's going to be Garnacho on the left. And then I think it will be Bruno, Mount, and probably Casemiro, who will be suspended for the Champions League game. And I think he will play, but I would be nice to see Mejbri play because he's been good. And then I think it will be this back four. This is what I think Ten Hag will do. I'd like to see the diamond. I'd like to see Mejbri play because I think he's been really important. But I think that's what the lineup's going to be. Do let me know what your lineup would be down below. Let me know your thoughts on Ten Hag's press conference. I thought it was quite a good press conference. He spoke about how the levels have dropped. He spoke about how we need to win. He spoke about lack of consistency, how we're not performing well in 90 minutes, lapse of concentration, that the levels are dropping, and that's unacceptable. He said we are in transition of a club, but at United, we need to win games. He knows that this is a process and all of that as well. And, I thought that Ten Hag's press conference was quite good when he was highlighting the problems at United, because obviously, we have other problems, but you can't exactly go, the board is useless, the owners are useless. I know Ralph Rangnick did that, and I think if he publicly slanders players like he did with Sancho, which wasn't really slander with Sancho, but he just said that Sancho wasn't reaching the levels in training and Sancho had a hissy. I think if he did call out certain players and go, yeah, Casemiro has not been doing this well, or Lindelof's been pushed off the ball, it puts him at risk of falling out with the players if he starts naming and shaming players in press conferences, because I don't really think he said anything too bad about Sancho, just said he hadn't reached the level, and that caused an argument. So I do think that Ten Hag's handled that quite well. I think the media's on him, they're all on his back, they're all turning on him. I think everyone wants Ten Hag to fail, and look, while I've not been super impressed with what I'm seeing, the lack of identity at United is worrying, and I don't like the constant favouritisms and style of play. I'm all here for sort of backing Ten Hag and giving him time to turn things around, because I think everyone kind of wants him to fail in the media. I think the board set him up to fail. I think the injuries haven't helped, but I think, the problems at United go way beyond sacking the manager. It's just a short-term fix. And I'm a big fan of Ten Hag. I do like Ten Hag. I do think he can turn it around. And I'd like to see him try something different versus Brentford, like the diamond, but I think it will be a 4-3-3. But obviously, I know a lot of you people don't really like Antony, but I think Antony coming back will make a big difference to our dynamics. He does a lot of work off the ball, and I do think we are a better team when Antony plays, which might be an unpopular opinion. I'm not a big fan of Mount and Bruno together in the same midfield. I don't think it works. I think Mount's been good, but I think him and Bruno, I don't think they quite know what their roles are. I don't think it works. And I think also it leaves Casemiro out to dry here as well. So I'm not a big fan of this midfield, but from what I'm hearing, what the rumours are, this is going to be the lineup. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. Please do hit that like button. Of course, subscribe if you're new. Share the video. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.